Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 35 of Marketing Corner with Casper and Jen. And today we're going to talk... Oh, sounds like something heavy just got dropped outside.
Bombshell.
That was it. It was a mic drop.
And we're off to racist people.
Yes. Sorry. Anyway, where were we? Back in the room. We're going to talk about events.
Yeah.
But in the prep for this episode, we realized that events are kind of a big topic, so we're breaking it down.
Yes.
How are we breaking it down?
We're breaking it into 2 episodes. The first one here is going to be virtual events, webinars, but other things too, but virtual events. Next one's going to be physical.
Yes.
Where I think I might have a little bit more experience with the first one, and you have more experience in the second one.
Yep.
So, okay. The first one is going to be on virtual events. How many have you done webinars in the past?
Oh, yes. We've done a lot of webinars, and I did work for a video marketing company. So
a little bit,
quite a few webinars. I have a love-hate relationship with webinars. I'm not gonna lie.
Why?
I love them for the leads, but I never go to them myself. I never go to them. When I signed up for them,
Tarnished, right?
No.
They're so burned.
Yeah. I don't have a full day or an hour of my day
No.
to sit and watch something, so I always get the recording.
Literally can't remember the last time I attended a live webinar.
Yeah.
And I hate saying it because I'm such a proponent of it, but it's just...
Yeah. So that's
I think it was one topic. I had a surgery back in March, and that was only a live webinar. There was no recordings. I was forced to do it. So yeah, I showed up live for that one.
Yeah.
But that's maybe the only time.
So that's the hate side. I mean, it's good. You can repurpose. I get it on demand, and that's fine. But I know in some companies I worked at, they were very adamant for live attendees and asking questions and things like that. And I've even worked in companies where the employees with the plants on the, we would ask questions to make sure the questions were asked because there was no one there.
No, we've done the same.
Yeah.
Done the same.
How about you?
United and Take, I've done the same. So no, I think it's important when we have these discussions. It's always like I always tell people when I teach them social selling. I think that's a good example. Is that remember that now you're part of the 1%, and it doesn't mean and you and I, Jen, I call us part of the 1%. Because we've done so many webinars. Like I think I've done 50 in 2 years or something. I've done a lot. We got a little slow with United FinTech, but just I participated, spoken at, arranged at a lot of webinars.
Yep.
And that makes me part of 1% because not a lot of people do it. Yes, webinars is moving. Let's call it maybe part of the 5%. But most people, and I think we recently did our second webinar with United FinTech, where we involved one of our portfolio companies. When this episode is out, I'm actually not in United FinTech anymore, so it's essentially we, but that's a little bit weird. But with United FinTech, we kind of did what we did was we got our portfolio company in, and we essentially they'd never done a webinar before. They were super insecure, like, ooh. And the people, this is the more important part, is the people who attended very rarely attend webinars too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're not the webinar type of people. So they actually fucking showed up.
Yeah.
Like, our attendance rate was above 50%. Wow. It was engagement. It was I think we had 100 signups for a topic that was super niche. It was like a new regulation on structured products coming out in January. So a bit of urgency, a lot of urgency, but still super nerdy, super niche. A lot of attendees, a lot of engagement. Questions, boom, boom, boom. Really high profile of key stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. And I think my point of saying all this is that we in marketing, we have a tendency to call things dead, right?
Mm.
You know, I feel like email's dead.
Yeah.
Webinars dead.
Gated content's dead. Thank you.
No, but come on, like we have this tendency to call things dead, right? And it is, and like I remember after COVID, during COVID, it was like webinars is the street, go webinars, go virtual, and then everyone's like, oh, webinar, I'm so done with webinars. And I'm like, yeah, it's still doing, like, we're still doing. When it's still like emails dead, I don't think so. Email's fine.
Yeah. It's just how you do it and how you incorporate your strategy.
Exactly.
That's what you have to try to do. Yeah.
Exactly. I have a big question here I want to ask you, Jen.
Yes.
Prepared you for this one.
Oh, Doc.
When you have done a webinar, what do you do with the people who participated afterwards? Do you call them? Do you pass them on to sales? Do you put them in nurture flow?
In the past, well, I've always done nurture flow.
Okay.
Because that doesn't make you a warm lead necessarily. But what we did recently, we did a webinar last week, I believe, on the 8th. And similar situation, like most of my webinars, we're talking like 30, 40 signups. We had 150 signups for something, again, super niche, talking about IoT. It was based off a talk that our co-founder Henrik gave, our CTO, and 100 turned up. So that's pretty good. Out of 150 signups, and super engaged, lots of questions.
Like it's in.
Yeah, it was bonkers, and we were like, oh my god, because we were ready to like be there if we had to be, and then we weren't needed, and people were asking questions, and it was great. And so what we did with that afterwards was that everyone who had attended at least 65%. So we also saw a little bit of a drop off rate, but I think we only lost like 8 or 9 throughout the whole thing. So we had a pretty good end rate. So people who attended the whole thing, if they already existed in HubSpot and they had a certain lead score, say they've already engaged in other ways and they're in our core ICP, then they would go to BDR outreach.
Okay, so just some outreach based on lead scoring based on.
And so the lead scoring is based on your profile, but also your behavior and engagement with us in the past. So it's not necessarily like you've never heard from us and you just showed up. You have to have some kind of engagement with us. We know that you've been around. And then topic was related to something that I think enterprise companies would be interested in. So that's also kind of why we prioritize that.
Okay.
How about yourself?
Well, it was actually a heated topic in FinTech, or it did, but it was something we discussed a bit. Because I'm a full believer in when people don't supply you with their phone number for a webinar, I don't want to call you.
Yeah.
Like just like when I play marketing, I play the long game. I'm fully aware that sometimes you have to play the short game, and I'm more than willing to do that once in a while. But in the broader scale of things, I'm playing the long game here. So when I do webinars, it's to educate and to bring as many people in as I can. Hey, why don't you ungate it? Well, I probably should. But in the first beginning here, at least for FinTech, we just wanted to test it, right? Just wanted to get it off the ground, see most of the people signing up and stuff. But my point is, sales really wanted to reach out to all of them. And I put my foot down and say, please don't fucking do that.
Yeah.
Because what typically happens, this is what I've seen in the past, and I remember my sales leader asked me for evidence on this. The only evidence I have of this is actually me doing it. So take it for what it is. But what I've seen is that if you reach out too soon, you actually end up, let's say you have, let's make this really easy. You have 50 people attending a webinar. Let's make it 100 actually, make it even easier. 100 people attending a webinar. You call all of them. And maybe let's say you book 1, 2, 3 meetings for just for experiment's sake, right? Book 1, 2, 3. First of all, would those people eventually have booked a meeting with you anyways? Through nurture, through other things? Potentially, yes, we don't know. How then, so you book 3 meetings, or as you book those 3 meetings, you'll potentially burn 97 of them, right? I think that's the important part. You potentially, and it, like, you don't burn, sometimes you burn. Like you say, hey, when you call someone, you get their phone number snitched out, and then you say, and you call them, you're like, how did you get my phone number? I pull it up and you attend this webinar, blah, blah, blah. Yes, sometimes you don't burn it, but I've seen cases where you literally get burned, right?
Yeah.
So let's say you burned them. What are you so busy? What's the ratio of the people who attended that webinar who would have converted anyways? What I've seen in the past that we could convert in the first period 1 to 3, up to 3%, and sometimes lower, so closer to 1.5. Whereas if over time, and here I'm talking 9 to 12 months, I'm not talking tomorrow, I'm not talking short term. So 9 to 12 months, we would book something like 5 to 10%. The 5 to 10% of those would convert into demos by themselves with proper nurture, proper retargeting, proper stuff happening around it. And then my point is, why are we wasting resources on sales only to burn? And it's burns bridges. It really burns bridges. And on the short term, you're setting salespeople up for failure by having them chase this. And yes, it will make their quarter win, but it will make their year burn. It sounds really rad. But my point is that's kind of my philosophy. It's been that for a while now. I know that's very controversial to some people, but I've seen it work. I've seen it work multiple times now.
I would disagree with you.
Yeah.
Because when this comes up all the time between us, this kind of gated and things like that. My concern is if it takes 12 months and retargeting, your CAC is going up and up and up and up and up and up. And there are targets and there are deadlines. I agree with you that they shouldn't contact everyone on that list. Yeah, and I agree with you that it could burn a bridge. And I would definitely be that person who's like, how did you get my number? I didn't I didn't sign up for that. So we kind of try to go in the middle where we're like, okay, these people have engaged with us. We think that they'd be good. and then it's an email outreach.
Yeah.
It's never like a call, unless in another kind of lower funnel activity, they gave us our number at some point. Maybe it depends on the BDR, but by and large, we try to kind of go in the middle. And this is kind of leads into the gated, non-gated debate as well. Like I see a lot of people saying they would have converted eventually, but it's like, I can't work with eventually. I have to do something to get those engagements now, or those conversions, now, because I don't have those 12 months to wait. So I think it's kind of, for me, finding that in ideal marketing world, yes, everything's out there, everything's free. Take what you want, guys. Eventually you'll come to us. But like when you have targets, when you have quarterly things, you'll kind of have to find that middle ground of like, what's the best and scenario.
Is that middle ground, right?
And that's,
some form of lead scoring is that middle ground. I'm totally okay with that. It's not like...
Everyone should listen back to the lead scoring debate where we had, and Casper was not okay with it. He has changed his tune, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't.
Mic drop.
But I don't like lead scoring.
I know you don't.
But it's not like I think it's fine. Like I don't think it's the end of the world. I just think philosophy wise, because I can also I see behavior when I talk to people and I think of myself and stuff, and I'm just like, I would get super annoyed, and I've been super annoyed. But I've also converted through these nurture flows because when the timing's right, and you have to think. Sometimes you can also construct these nurture flows to be pretty aggressive, right? And I do that a lot, right? It's not like I have this super passive thing where it's like I'm not gonna touch you. More like, okay, here's you've shown a lot of you actually saw the whole webinar. I'm like, boom, boom, boom. We have some BDRs, we automate some stuff and outreach to you. So it's not like that. It's just like this whole putting you on a sequence where we call you 14 times.
Oh, yeah, no.
It's really not.
That's not so great.
That's what I mean, refer to. But when in a good way, it can be done in a good way. I think that's my comment.
Slight change. Yeah. How do you determine what topics to cover?
That is so hard. Oh, God. Oh, God. The hardest thing in a webinar for me has always been two things. It's actually not getting people to attend. That's for me, that's easy. The hard part has always been the topic and the fucking speakers.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
It takes a lot of running.
The first you have, especially with United FinTech, because there are so many stakeholders and there's these, founders you have to involve. So the founders are not super commercial. So you have to align with a commercial topic that the sales commercial department agrees with the founders, and you have to align on all that stuff. Mm-hmm. That's really hard. But fundamentally, I've always said, what is the purpose of the webinar? I think you always have to start there. Is your purpose to short-term gain? Short-term gains to talk, for instance, the one we had about urgency before 1st of January, so regulation stuff. That's pretty urgent. And so that's very lead generation focused. But you can also do some very top-level thought leadership on some bigger topics, right? So you have to decide what part of the funnel does your webinar fit into. Is it lower intent or is it higher intent? Mm-hmm. I think that's step one, and that goes into your topic. I prefer to actually, and this is a little bit weird because for me, webinars is a bigger play. It's a bigger play that I wanted to reach more people. I understand there's a lot of niche topics, and we also do niche webinars, but I think webinars for me, it's okay to go a little bit wide sometimes. And then once you've proven that you're good at webinars, you know what you're doing, you've done the first ones, then you do the niche ones. Mm-hmm. But the first ones, I kind of want to do a little bit wide. That's at least been my approach. But that's not what everyone else in an organization isn't, right? And then there's the speaker parts. Finding speakers, man.
That's tough, yeah. I think that's, for me, the most time-consuming part of the job.
Hard. Yeah, absolutely. There's also just a lot of details, right, around the webinar. Plan. First of all, finding a date. God, the first you find this, finding the topic, that's step one. Finding the speakers, that's step two. Finding the date. Sometimes they flip, but when that's in place, that's when I became happy, because all this technical part of setting it up and executing it, that's relatively easy, right?
Yeah.
But finding the speakers, that's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Have you found speakers in the past?
Well, we tend to use customers, so that's kind of a no-brainer. But we, and this is the beauty of having such a large team, is we have the luxury of extra hands to come up with a strategy. Yeah. And that strategy is, there's kind of two different areas. One is how we come up, we have tracks. So we have thought leadership.
Yeah.
How do we get our CTO in particular, because we're very tech, how do we get him talking about our tech a little bit more? Then we have kind of customer success, because we want to start doing group onboardings through webinars and things like that. So that's kind of still a webinar, but it's not necessarily lead gen. And then we want to do more kind of industry knowledge, which I guess is kind of thought leadership, but less towards selling and more towards IoT in general and stuff like that. And but then the way we come up with topics is we actually look at our data, we look at our keywords, we look at what pieces of content have the most engagements. We, you know, and actually one of the things that I think is absolutely brilliant, our social media Raf cut that, social media specialist has, she did a poll.
Okay.
What's your biggest challenge with IoT? And then all the respondents, depending on what they said, it's like, okay, that's what we're going to talk about in a webinar.
We asked our customers.
Yeah. And you just ask people. Yeah.
Like, what are the things you're struggling with? Sometimes they come up with stuff that doesn't really make sense, but sometimes they're like, we're actually struggling with this thing right now. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And that's the webinar.
That's the webinar.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, there's also like low-hanging fruit, like one of the ones we recently did. We gave that talk in at an event in Portugal. So it was just basically repurposing that, making it for a wider audience. And then we found a customer. You know, we're very lucky that we have some we call them the fanboys, you know, who love us. And we flew him out here for the summit that we had. He's based in the UK, so he was 100% ready to jump on. We have a few here. We have Maersk, who love jumping on stuff with us, which is a very, very wonderful thing to be. It's a good name to have associated with you. So we're quite lucky in that respect of finding speakers.
I think you briefly mentioned one of the key things I want people to take away from today is what happens after the event. So one thing is the whole nurture flow and all that stuff. But what you said, the key word here is repurpose.
Yes.
And honestly, I wasn't that good at that at Templify. It was not something, you know, I just didn't do it that much. I've done it a lot in FinTech, and I gotta say, it is the key to making webinars a big player in like your strategy. God, I love it. So what he said, like the first webinar we did in FA, we cut it up to multiple more pieces. We used it for social content. We used it for ads. We used it in email nurture flows. We used it in guides, small pitches with like small snippets. We used it everywhere. And that's so good. And for me, that's when your whole investment comes to fruition. Because if you only do the thing to generate leads, like up front, that might, like, I still think it's a good investment, but it's debatable if it's such a good investment. But once you, like, suddenly you have a calendar full of stuff for 1, 2, 3 months.
Yep.
That's amazing. Like, that'll been absolutely. So you got to focus on your repurpose. How do you take your webinar, cut it into small pieces, use different placements?
Yeah, we do the same, and also we make like an infographic, or we'll just turn it again. Having the blessing of an 11-person team, we have an animations person. Turn that into an animation, make it into some kind of interactive thing. You know, just repurpose
every time.
Yeah. White paper
issues, white paper stuff. Every single time we release one, we attach a blog post because then it also adds some other SEO dues too, right?
Yeah.
And then it fun also, like on the reverse part, makes the blog post stronger.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, win-win.
And that's maybe a little tip for our listeners is always do the subtitles of the webinar, and then you can download the subtitles and there's your blog post. You know, you just kind of change the wording a little bit, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time.
I've been using a tool called Descript. Oh, Descript. I don't know. The Spark Force. But there's such a plug.
Sport farce.
Sport Force. But come on. But Descript, right? Is like this little tool where it listens to the audio and then makes your subtitles for you. I can make it into a blog post, for instance.
Oh, that's nice.
And super golden. Like really, really good for that stuff.
Cool. We use Wistia subtitles and then just copy paste.
Hey, you can also send it. Wistia.
Yeah.
But that brings me to another part. What kind of tool stack do you have for webinars?
Yes. So the webinar tool we use at the moment is Webinar Geek.
Okay.
And that was just out of one of the things that we want to do first is we want to make sure that webinars are going to be worth a huge investment. So we wanted to go with kind of cheap, cheerful, had the right, features that we needed. And so that was, we did a research. I've used Livestorm in the past. I've used 23 in the past. I've used not Wistia, excuse me. They've just launched one, but for me, Webinar Geek is kind of the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Nice enough within a decent budget to help us get this off the ground, and then we can revisit.
Absolutely. No, and I don't use Webinar Geek. We use Livestorm. I'm a huge fan. I think it's great.
Yeah.
The only caveat I have it with Livestorm is when you sell into big banks like United FinTech does, some big banks have firewall. So there's some firewall issues with signing up and stuff that I have to use dial-in and blah. I think you have to use some of the old school tools, go to webinar, stuff like that to avoid those firewalls. But man, I'd rather die by the fire than use the.
Yeah, I used to go.
God, if you just go to webinar too much, and it's like.
We used that in my career. Yeah, that was not fun.
That was not fun. And I think Zoom even has the same issues with firewalls. So I don't even think I think there's don't think that's easy. But actually, we use Wistia as well on top of that. So we combine it also with HubSpot, right? We use HubSpot as well, and the whole integration with data kind of flows super.
That's nice.
Seamless. But Wistia, then we can take the snippets and upload those and use them in different placements and stuff. That's
nice.
Shines.
Yeah.
As of this moment, Wistia just released their beta for webinar to also include that. I think I'm more than willing to try that in the future, but I'm trying it.
Yeah. No, we were looking at it as well. Right now, the price tag is a little high for getting off the ground. But if it's something that we're like, okay, we're going to double down on webinars, we can see the benefit. And, our first one went well. It could be something definitely in the future because those HubSpot analytics right now, we have to import everything into HubSpot and it would save us a lot more time. It's that those HubSpot integrations can be very expensive.
Yeah, they're
because they know that people want them.
Pricing integration's a whole new topic.
Yeah. Another episode.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do we? I have one thing that's sort of covered before we end.
Yes.
Have you ever attended a virtual? When I say virtual event, like an event with multiple speaking things going on?
Yes, we actually were on one. We were on a Tech Barbecue. Remember?
Yeah. As a guest, maybe.
As it's sort of a participant, you mean?
No, but have you ever actually, as a participant, been on one of those?
I tried for the other talks at Tech Barbecue, and I found it actually very complicated.
It is a bit complicated.
I was not sure where I was supposed to be. Yeah. So I can't remember what tool they use. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Like I was, I did this thing for, I think it was called Growth Hub or Growth Mentor or something, where I did a talk, and then they had multiple different tracks and stuff. You can sign it, and it was really confusing. So I've maybe it's just me. Maybe I haven't done it in a while, and same for you, or but I think there's for someone out there listening, there's a gap in the market in creating something that works better.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's solved yet, and I think there's still a lot of potential. Like I think you can do these virtual events in a good way. I just COVID moved it forward. I still.
Yeah, and actually, that jogged recovered memory. We organized our CEO at Dixa was speaking at an event, and it was entirely virtual. And I remember we tried to log on and we could not find him. And we showed up like 10, 15 minutes late. There was someone else that we had to message the moderator to be like, we can't get let in. They had to do something, then we could get let in. And by that point, the talk was half gone. Maybe 10 minutes in, we finally got in and there was like 2 other people there when a bunch of people had signed up. But getting in, it was a bit of a nightmare. So yeah, if you can fix that.
Please, do so.
Yeah.
Have you used LinkedIn Live? Like,
No.
I've used it a few times. I really like it. It's really cool. You don't get a lot of people attending though.
Yeah.
Like it's really, and that's it. We'll debate gated versus non-gated, right? Like kind of brings it back to that a little bit. But it's been really good. It's gotten some good engagement from the people listening. That's the interesting part. The people who actually listen to your LinkedIn Live is a lot more engaged than the one that does on a webinar. But there's a lot less people attending, at least for the ones I did. Maybe I'm not famous enough. I don't know. But
I get the notifications, but it's always like I'm on the train or, I'm with my kid.
Really, like
it's never a good time.
And it's kind of, I listened to, this is not to shame because we're actually going to bring him on at some point, but Stefan from Dream Data, he was on with Patrick Campbell, which is like the founder of this Profit Welsh, super cool, really smart guy. And it was like 5 people. I was like number 6. And I was like, God, this is like so cool, this topic. Like, why is no one listening here? And that's, I think, because of LinkedIn Live.
Yeah.
Oh
well, live and learn.
Yeah. Anyway.
Nice. Cool. Well, that was a meaty one.
That was a meaty one. It's a good one. Yeah.
Yep.
You guys got something out of it.
Yep, absolutely. Well, maybe let's summarize key takeaways.
Yeah.
Do webinars.
Don't stop. Don't listen to people. It's still relevant.
Yeah. Don't listen to people say webinars are dead. They're not dead. Just do them right. Do a decent follow-up, but don't be a dick.
Yes. No, yeah, and I think that's the point. I don't
be annoying.
Follow up too hard.
Yeah.
Don't burn a bridge, but also like make sure you get something out of it.
Yeah, and then repurpose. The amount of effort that goes into a webinar, you want to get more than just the webinar.
Yeah. Put 80% on it afterwards. Make sure it goes into everything you do afterwards.
And ask customers what they want to learn about. Do your research. What are your keywords? What are converting people? What are the problems people are facing? Because that's what they want to learn. That's why they're going to turn up.
Yes, and get a good stack for it. Like get a good tech stack. Tools matter, especially in this case.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks guys. Bye.